Before we get started, I'd just like to take a moment and congratulate Jeff on his new position.
Thank you very much.
We're not losing him, he's still gonna be with us, so, which is a good thing. Okay.
No comment.
All right, so, next order of business is minutes from the February 21st meeting. Anybody have any corrections, deletions, omissions?
Nope.
I was not here, but I'll ask for a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, did you make the customary announcement about being recorded and subject to rebroadcast?
I didn't. So, ladies and gentlemen, this meeting is recorded, and it's subject to rebroadcast on WestfordCAT. So, as someone said earlier, no swearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Joe, did you have anything before we get started?
Just as part, I guess, open forum, Mr. Chair, this Saturday is annual town meeting. It's going to start at 9 a.m. Check-in will start at 8 a.m. It's over at Westford Academy. There will be off-site parking as well as the parking lot does fill up at the Robinson and Christopherly schools. And there'll be a shuttle service that's provided in order to get from those schools over to Westford Academy. So 9 a.m. Is that right? Going to be enough room? There are 1,600 clickers available for voting. So there'll be space for 800 in the gym and 800 in the PAC.
Seats are better in the PAC.
You'll have the clickers are color coordinated, so clickers won't work in one room, but they will work in the other. So if you have a red clicker, you're in one room, blue clicker in the other room. So you'll get that clarification if you send and check in.
Okay. First order of business tonight is 7 Craig Circle. You want to come up here and give us your name, tell us what you want to do, and I'd like to open the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I'd like to sit Dan on this, seeing how. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, okay.
Hi, good evening. My name is Edmund Aziabo. I'm representing Michael Gineku, who is out of town and couldn't make this hearing. He's eagerly awaiting to hear from us. So we're requesting the board consider an extension from the curb side to the front door of about 8 feet. I believe the current 50 feet allowance, and the plan for the building is going to be moving at least 8 feet towards the front to allow for the door to be moved from the very front facing to the side, which creates a better curb appeal as well, a little privacy, and then the circulation and flow inside the house. Michael has an autistic kid, and the flow would allow for kids or even anyone playing with anyone with disabilities, for instance, to be able to move around the stairway much better. So just about 8 feet that we're asking for the variance.
Okay. It's pretty much in keeping with everything in the neighborhood as far as design and shape and size. I didn't see any issues that really jump out at me. The bedroom count staying the same.
From the existing house now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And so the only other issue I think that staff reported on might have been septic design.
I believe that's been approved, right?
That's not under our purview, but as long as you are dealing with the Board of Health on that. There was no change there was a change in the location, but There was no change in the dwelling location. And conservation needs to weigh in on this also.
Okay.
Charles LaRue, I'm Michael's contractor, general
Okay.
contractor. Yeah, I brought that up with Michael in the conversation. He had a business problem out of state and he had to go handle it. But it is revised, it's been set forth to conservation, I think in the health department, they both have that information, just subject for their approval. But everything's still gonna be conforming, you know, it's still the actual design. It was moved a little closer, I think, to the house, and it doesn't impact wetlands at all.
Okay. Anybody else have questions, comments?
It looks like you're just taking the stairs out in the front, the steps there,
Yeah, there was just a set of concrete block steps there, and now we're creating actually a more appealing, similar to 6 Craig Circle, which Michael also has revised that property and done over. But the entranceway is gonna be, instead of facing the street onto the side, to be a little porch in the front there on the side of it.
Okay. Anybody in the audience have any comments for or against this project? Seeing none. We have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so, we are looking for a variance to reduce the front yard setback from 50 feet to 42. We have that motion.
So moved.
Second.
Scott?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
And I will also vote in the affirmative. Staff has 14 days to write the decision. There's a 21-day appeal period. And after that, you can start banging nails.
Thank you very much, have a great evening.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda, Zero Muriel Drive.
It's been a long time, hello.
Hello, hello.
Ever since that new bylaw, I guess I won't be coming here anymore.
Stay with Gimbals.
Hope that's not an omen.
Okay, so, before we start, this board has a policy of accepting information that comes in the day of, but it doesn't mean we've looked at it or read it. So, I am gonna recommend that this be postponed until the next meeting. And my advice to you is, get all your ducks in order, because they're way out of order. I have a list here. I can go down the whole list and tell you everything that's wrong. I can open the public hearing and continue it if you'd like.
No. Oh, thank you, sir.
You wanna wait till the
Jeff?
next meeting?
You're gonna have to. We're gonna get his list and do the work.
Given that it might be beneficial to the petitioner to, if you feel that there are some questions that need answering, it might be in everyone's best interest that you do open the hearing, since it was scheduled to be open tonight. You can at least share that information, so you can give them better guidance and have a more efficient
Sure.
next meeting.
And time-wise, if we run out of time, all you have to do is give us an extension. I'm sure your counsel is very aware of that.
Yes.
Okay. So, can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So let's start off with the narrative. Your narrative says you're gonna build a house that's 1,783 square feet. A house that's 40 by 58 is 2,320 square feet.
It's a single-story store.
I have this packet. This is what I go by.
Right, the packet that I submitted to this ZBA is right here, and it shows a single-story ranch home.
Right, but the foundation's 40 by 58. Do the math.
Right, but you gotta subtract out the garage, sir. It's not living space. Are you talking under roof, or are you talking living space?
Under roof on this lot,
You'd have to subtract the garage, which is 400 and something square feet. I mean, you're just gonna park a car in there.
okay. So, we know for a fact that there's only gonna be a two-bedroom septic system allowed over there.
That's correct.
The original plans that we got have 3 bedrooms.
Yeah, it was amended, sir, and we changed it to an office.
Right, with
That was
a
the
with a
original
closet.
intent. No, the closet's been removed also, sir.
So, once again, our policy is, if it's not in this packet that we get the Friday before the meeting, I can't help you. Okay? The other thing that I was a little concerned about is the plot plan states that the boundaries are not instrumentally surveyed, and it's only applicable for permit or bank mortgage survey. Typically, if you're gonna build a brand-new house, we want a certified plot plan. No ifs or ands about it. If you're putting on a farmer's porch in the front, we understand. You can't mess up too bad,
I understand.
okay? Does anybody else on the board have any concerns?
Mr. Chair, if I could
Yes,
speak
ma'am.
to that issue, if you don't mind. This is going to come in as a request for variance to build on this lot. So prior to spending the money for a certified plot plan to show the building on the lot, I think we have to jump over the hurdle of getting the variance if it's gonna be approved for this lot.
It's not our policy, Counselor.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, you're gonna have to spend a few bucks, so there's no doubt in my mind, but that's not in our purview. And so the other thing I'll make comment on is my predecessor and his predecessor have always said, we are not in the business of creating undersized house lots.
Absolutely.
And I think the board will echo that to me. So you can proceed as you want, but that's kind of the policy of this board.
We are here because we believe that there are extenuating circumstances, and we'd like the board to hear
Yep.
the
No.
criteria for a variance. Mr. Morissette was kind enough to point out to me today that that is not in the narrative, it will be in an amended narrative.
So did you have any other questions of us?
I would like to get the copy of that list that you have.
I'll give it to you here.
Yep, you can make a copy.
Yep, you can take that.
Our intent with the plot plan was to have it certified as a certified plan. I'll get after Mr. Farnsworth, who did that on our behalf.
Okay. And for the record, can we have your name also?
Yeah, for the record, my name's James Moran with Northeast Classic Engineering.
Okay. And you're a certified engineer?
I am not an engineer, sir.
Okay. Okay.
I'm a registered sanitarian.
Okay.
In 1988, my desk was right here. I used to work for the town of Westford. I was the health agent.
All right, great. So the board has no other comments, questions?
The only comment is, this is a residential A district, right, that you're?
It's
that you're
residence
doing this?
district.
Was some correspondence about the property owner unauthorized the sale, and then now we have a new correspondence saying it's been authorized to?
That's correct.
I mean, that seems like a little bit of a range war, or I don't know what it is, but it's
The,
a little bit of a quandary there. How did that play out?
The unfortunate thing is that this property owner was led to believe for a number of reasons, which is what we're going to present as our criteria for the variance, led to believe that this was a building lot and entered into a contract with Mr. Moran to purchase the building lot. When we discovered that it was not a building lot absent a variance, the property owner decided he wasn't going to continue with the deal, and they have since talked about it at some length. And they are going to now, the property owner is now going to allow us to continue to seek the variance and see if we can obtain one.
Okay, so it was off and now it's on.
It was off and then it's on again.
So was this lot held in same ownership?
Yes, yes, it was.
So if it was a non-conforming lot, doesn't it legally become part and parcel with the adjacent one?
The argument I'm going to make is that typically you have the doctrine of merger applying in situations where lots are held in common ownership, and typically you avoid that when they're not held in common ownership or when there is a plan endorsed by the planning board prior to zoning, and that was in common ownership for a certain number of years. In this case, we have a plan that was endorsed by the planning board after zoning was enacted, and it was endorsed as, for all intents and purposes, looking like a building lot with frontage, with size similar to all the other sizes in the neighborhood, notwithstanding that your zoning bylaw required a larger area. So I'm going to try to make the argument that the lot owner who held it separate and apart all these years as a piece of his retirement investment may be entitled to the hardship argument, if you don't mind.
Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this? Anybody in the audience would like to speak in opposition to this? Anybody in the audience have a comment? Come up to the microphone, please, and give us your name.
Bill McGuire, I live on 4 Easy Street. The back of my property looks out onto this piece of property. Are we going to have another meeting to, okay. I do have a couple of questions that
Right ahead.
maybe I could just get them out there right now. So when I first looked at the packet, I noticed that this piece of property was classified as buildable, and it surprised me because I know for a long time it was not buildable. So I looked in the town website at the history of this property, and if you look at it, it says in 2023 it's unbuildable. It's worth about $3,400, and it's basically that way all the way back to 1910. And then all of a sudden, I see in 2024 it's been changed to buildable, with a land value of $177,000. So I'm just wondering, how can anybody clarify how, after 100 years of being not buildable, it's all of a sudden buildable? There must have been some official filing or
I'm
something?
not sure how that happened, but part of the reason they're here is to seek a variance to make it a buildable lot.
Okay,
That's the crux of why they're here.
okay. So nobody knows why it got switched from unbuildable to buildable?
If you look at the physicality of the lot, because of its size in the RA's district, it's an undersized lot and it's not buildable.
Right.
However, council believes that she can create an argument saying that it is buildable for various reasons. And next month, she's gonna tell us that.
Another question I have is about this letter, and I'm sure there's an easy answer to it, but it outlines some pretty specific reasons why it's not in compliance with the zoning. But then there's this parenthetical expression says, and any other permit relief that may be required. So,
That's kind of legal speak that everybody throws in there just in case they miss something.
so if the setbacks end up not being within code, does that,
No,
It's automatic.
no. So what happens
Okay.
is, if we approve this based on a plot plan they submit to us,
uh-huh,
we approve that plan to the letter.
yeah,
If the setback is 40 feet, it's gotta be 40 feet. If it's 20 feet, it's 20 feet.
okay.
So there's no wiggle room.
Okay, so
Especially
this
on a
doesn't
lot
mean
this
you
size.
automatically get a variance if something else is, there's another problem that crops up.
I'll let Jeff answer that.
So just to add to what the chair said, so the zoning board can only grant that relief which is specifically requested
Right.
normally. So if during the course of a hearing, say, things change or they make adjustments to address some public comments and it creates another situation, sometimes the wording of the language can provide some flexibility, but absent a petitioner asking for the board granting specific relief, it's really typically not implied, but now we're getting in legal territory, but I will say that typically they gotta ask for it in order to get it.
Okay,
I don't know if that helps or if I made it worse.
it does help. It just seemed like a really broad, kind of blank check kind of statement. And I just want to say I'm opposed to this. I mean, right now it's a nice wooded lot, gives me a lot of privacy. I've lived at this house for 47 years. I'm retired now, so I basically my wife and I spend we're at the house all the time. We're out in our backyard doing stuff. Gives us a lot of privacy, and the open space is nice, and we would really not want to see a house there, where right now we have a beautiful wooded lot and, a lot of privacy and peace and quiet. So I really would not want to see a house go in there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Scott,
Yes, Dave.
the attorney mentioned that there was perhaps some action by the the planning board. And I think if she brings that argument forward next time, there's gotta be some specificity to that. It simply can't be, if you will, a quote-unquote story. Who on the planning board, when, the particulars.
So,
I'm just suggesting that.
so what I guess what the statement is that if the planning board did in fact improve something there, then the year and everything he mentioned as to who approved it and so on and so forth. Maybe a copy of the decision.
What I have is the recorded plan of record. I'll see if I can dig up the decision.
Oh,
It was
that's
back in the
okay.
70s.
Also, that implies how it was documented with the
Right.
town.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything? Yes, sir.
Lawrence Ledoux, 1 Easy Street. A counselor here has brought up an interesting, she talked about a hardship clause. So is that so gonna move the board that maybe he wants to move out of that house and move to Florida? What's left, if this board votes for it, is this house on an undersized lot and impacting the neighborhood. So I'm kind of concerned that can the board be moved with the dynamics of this, which is very, very small. I don't know how this even measures out. And I know you've asked to have a plot plan. So I'm just concerned, will this board be moved by a case of hardship on a piece of property?
I don't know if we can answer that till next month.
I would caution you not to answer that until,
Okay, so this is a legal question that probably has to go to a lawyer in the town. Is this correct?
this board is the granting authority. The burden is on the petitioner to prove to 4 to 5 members that they've adequately addressed the variance criteria.
So we have here variance criteria, okay? There are 3 items on there. The applicant has to prove to us that they've met all 3 items. And there's all different kinds of things. Circumstances owing to the soil condition, shape, and topography of the lot. Little enforcement of the provision or bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner. So that's kind of on them. And then the same kind of situation would be detrimental to the public good in the neighborhood. So that would be on the neighborhood.
Right.
So,
All right, it's just a question, and it's partially mentioned there. I just don't know if that's the case, if hardship, then half the people in Westford that have a lot next to their house, if this goes through, will come before you and say, you granted this to them because they brought up a letter of hardship from their counselor. And so now you're swayed by that because it is partially in that clause. So I'm just concerned that once you make this decision, and it's based partially on hardship, that in the future in the town of Westford, it won't take long before people sniff that out and their legal sources sniff that out and say, it's hardship. And now it's up to the board to make those decisions. And once you go against someone after going, if you vote for this, then that becomes, I believe, difficult for this board in the town of Westford.
well, what you have to understand is, we take every petition on a case-by-case basis. There is no precedent set with this board.
All
And
right.
if someone wants to appeal our decision, that's why they have lawyers.
All right, well, that is and the neighborhood is here tonight. They are not looking for this to go through. They're looking for the board to make a decision on this. And so, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it would be my suggestion to the members of the neighborhood that at the next meeting, or this meeting, if you have an opinion, please get up and say something about it. Yeah.
Or you can also submit comments to
Yeah.
the planning staff in advance of the meeting. If we get it early enough, we can include it in the board's packet.
So what's the cutoff date for material on this next meeting, please? Right up to the mic.
It's the next meeting on the,
Be on the 17th, so your
17th.
packets will go out the 12th.
12th, okay.
So that's the drop dead date.
Included by the 12th in the packet.
And, yep, get the staff a couple of days earlier so it gets in the packet.
Gives you time. Everybody.
Yes, ma'am, name and address.
Susan Ledoux, 1 Easy Street. I just have a question. It's going to be a small house on a very small lot.
Mhm.
Where's the septic and the well going to fade in? Because as it is now, the house that's right behind Terry's house is sharing her well, and that got approved for a tiny house that's right in between those two properties. So we're talking like 3 houses in one building lot, when all is said and done.
So well and septic do not fall under our purview.
Oh.
That's Board of Health kind of stuff. However, they still have to meet the criterion set forth for the town of Westford. And on the plan, the new plan that we get, I'm sure all that will be marked out so that we have a reference point as to where it is, and go from there.
Okay, and one other thing I know, because it came up with another house that was looking for a variance, which his new septic hole system was too close to my well, and I gave him a variance because it had always been there and it had always worked, so it was not an issue. But the issue was that they wanted to put another bedroom in, and the septic that was put in was only approved for 1 bedroom. We all know an office with a closet is a bedroom. So are they gonna try to slide that 2-bedroom in as an office?
Well, that's why we have inspectors, building inspectors, sanitation inspectors. We're gonna believe that it's gonna be a 2-bedroom structure with a 2-bedroom septic system. That's all I can tell you.
We have to wait and see.
That's right.
It's a big house on a little corner.
Yes, sir.
We do have the septic, and it was submitted to the package, and the Board of Health have approved that and the well permit for this lot.
Okay.
When was the permit approved?
It's in the packet.
It just says approved, it doesn't have a date.
Really, they didn't put a date on their own permit?
I didn't see the permit, I just saw it in the narrative.
No, there's a permit in the package, the actual copy of the town
Blue
permit.
copies, yeah.
It was approved 9/28/2023.
And the well before that.
Same time.
And you'll know where it's on the plan, tell them. When you do the plan, you'll know where it's.
Yes, the plan's not.
Jeff, may I ask a question? How do you get approval for a septic system on a lot that doesn't exist?
Well, the lot exists, whether it, I mean, the property exists, the lot exists. I'm sure they filed the proper application.
But I mean, can you, well, could maybe have a little more specificity. Don't they have to say this is a buildable lot before they give an opinion on a septic? I mean, I
So-
think there's a flaw in the system which I'm sure you can help fix.
I will
If
not
that's the case.
defend the system to suggest that it is flawless, but one thing that has come up on occasions in the past is, while you may need certain sign-offs to get occupancy, you do not necessarily need all the same sign-offs to get a permit. And so the frustrating thing to us is, under the law, someone can perhaps apply for something and undertake a lot of things that are very expensive without knowing for sure that they can get all the necessary sign-offs to actually occupy it later on. To us, we think that's a horrible thing, and we try to point that out as it comes our way, that while the building commissioner may not be able to withhold issuing certain permits, he does try to advise them that, just so that you know, we think you should maybe go to the health department and try to get this vetted while you're still in this process, so you don't set yourself up for a world of pain later on or a surprise. But some things they can't require, even though under common sense you say, why would you start this if you don't know you can actually finally do that? So it is frustrating to us as well.
The audience all set? No other comments, questions? Yes, sir. Come up to the microphone, please.
Sorry, Tom Hinkle, 10 Maple Road. I pass through this area of woods all the time, so I guess this is just a point of clarification. Maybe this goes to that last question. That's usually known to the neighbors as like an open, it's been just a wooded lot, which there's been lots of like trucks in there and the dirt is dug up and I guess I'm curious, it seems like work has begun, but from this, it seems like there's a hearing a month off to whether the work will happen. So I guess I'm just curious what the state of things is.
I couldn't tell you what the state of things is, but I can tell you he doesn't have a permit from us.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
There's no work that's begun. If you look at the pictures that were submitted in the packet, pictures of the raw land, the trees are still standing. I think he might be confused with the other smaller lot that's to the right side of 55 Lawson when you look at it, because work has begun on that small lot.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep.
That's a quick question. The septic system that was approved, how many bedrooms was that?
2-bedroom.
But the plans you submitted here have 3
Yeah,
bedrooms?
the architect made a mistake. It was then corrected and we turned in new plans to the planning department today.
I guess what I'm saying is the health department has a 2-bedroom.
Yes, yeah, and the property will be deed restricted also, so whoever moves in it first cannot transfer it as a 3-bedroom in the future. It'll be on the rider of the deed, which is specified in Title V.
Anybody else in the audience? The board all set? Oh, wait a minute. I got one more. Come on up. Give us your name, please.
Yeah, Chris Tarpton, 3 Muriel Drive. Am I right that the house is going to be 50 by 48?
58 by 40,
58 by 40?
yes.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to get the dimensions of the house. It seems like a fairly large house for just a 2-bedroom and a living room and kitchen.
How much is garage?
400.
Plus a garage?
Part of that's 2-car garage.
Yeah, it's a 2-car garage, basically 20 feet by 21 deep.
Yeah, it seems like an awfully large house, but it's such a small lot. It's
Okay, the board all set?
Yes.
So I'd like a motion to postpone this to our next regularly scheduled meeting in April, Joe, April 17th.
So moved.
Don't you have to, isn't it continuous?
It's continued.
Continuous.
Yes.
So moved. 17th of
April
April?
17th.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Sorry, I didn't hear who seconded that. Was that you, Jay? Thank you.
All right, so April 17th, you've got our list of
Thank you.
issues. I was thinking generally you'd get more prepared.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item under general business is the Drew Farmhouse project. And, one of the orders of conditions, I guess, at the time that they brought this project through us, was that they had to come back with the final plans, which I see Ellen Hardy here. And I think she's gonna go through the final plans with us. And there was a extra plan on the table today, guys. That was the revised septic plan for the project. So, do we have to open a public hearing on this?
There's no hearing, Mr. Chair. This is just a general business item.
All right. Helen, take it away.
John, are you gonna report on the pre-construction meeting, or do you want me to just report where we are? Okay, so work is well underway. There are really sort of two projects going on side by side, because we partnered with Habitat for Humanity. They're doing the 2 units in the barn, and the Drew Farmhouse Inc. are doing the 5 apartments that you see in the the farmhouse, the L, and the addition that was added in the back in 1994. So work is well underway in the 5 apartments. And Habitat will begin work next week in the barn to start their work. Since we saw you last, it has been decided that although the septic system behind the building that's been there and is approved is adequate for all 7 units, Habitat has chosen to create their own septic system, and there's ample room on the 2-acre lot for them to do that. So the existing lot will serve only the 5 units in the farmhouse, and the new system will accommodate the 2 units that will be in the barn, and that will, no question about whose turn it is to pump it out, and that makes a lot of sense. They also have their own water supply to that barn, because it used to be a standalone real estate office when the house was still a 2-family house. So although the Drew Farmhouse owns the entire property, we will be working with Habitat to be able to sell their 2 lots to Habitat families. Our 5 units will be rentals. That hasn't changed since we first met with you almost a year ago.
Wow.
I believe it was in May of 2023 that we came to your board. So we have met all the criteria. We have met with every building department. I think there were 6 boards we had to get approval from before we went to town meeting last October, and had unanimous approval from all of those. The town couldn't have been more cooperative, and I compliment Jeff Morissette for setting the standard for that in terms of being sure that all of the departments are talking to each other. Fire department has approved our sprinkler system, and with the board's approval tonight, we are supposed to get our final, our building permit from Henry Fontaine. He's waiting for your decision this evening, and then we will be able to go full steam ahead. And so it's a very exciting project, and we appreciate the support you gave for us a year ago. And any other questions you have about where we are or what we're up to, I'd be delighted to answer those.
The other question I had is that basement space, I guess it's the basement on the front, ground level in the back. That's not gonna be finished, right?
No, well, the one underneath the house actually is all a cement floor and is a finished basement. It will all be for storage, Scott. Each of the 5 apartments will have a storage area there in the basement, for bikes and things like that. The Habitat the barn has its very own basement with its very own access. And to be honest, I'm not sure what they will be using that for. Ours will, of course, be where the hot water heaters are. There'll all be mini splits for the heating system, so those will be outside the building on the back. So it will be just a storage area and for the hot water heater and the electrical.
Okay, great. Anybody have any questions about the layout or the apartments or anything else?
When do you think you'll have occupancy?
We're hoping for Thanksgiving time, David. At the moment, our contractor, Steve Gothier, is just a house of fire. And he told me today to get the kitchen plans for the first 3 apartments that are in the old farmhouse. So I would say more optimistically the end of the year. The Board of Selectmen required us to come up, sign an agreement with the Chelmsford Housing Authority, so they will be overseeing the selection of the 5 families, the 5 occupants who will live there, because as you know, they must meet the HUD requirements for workforce affordable housing. So they will be doing the advertising for us, because that's a world I'm learning about but don't know, and they do. So the Select Board asked us to work with them. Our Board of Directors will have the final say on who the 5 occupants are, but the process is all being overseen by David Henson and the Chelmsford Housing Authority.
You're still targeting Westford residents, I
At
assume.
Westford, we can do local preference for up to 80% of the units, which is 4. And if all 5 applicants happen to be from Westford, and by Westford, Dave, we've defined that as either a Westford resident now grew up in Westford or works for the town of Westford or in Westford. All of those are considered to be Westford qualified by our standards. And I have already received letters. I sent out letters of interest to town departments to remind them that that's why we are doing this project. And I'm delighted to say that they let their staff know, and we've already received letters of interest. And again, that's not an application. They'll have to go through the Housing Authority, but the word is out, so when the applications become available later this spring, the people who we are hoping will be living there will know that it's coming.
Could you share with us who's on your board?
Yes, I'm sorry, I thought you had met them. I'm the president of the board, and Cheryl Major is a member of our
Yep,
board.
yep.
And Sharice Lattimore, who actually lives just across the town line on Pine Hill Road in Chelmsford. She's a member of the board of the Greater Lowell Charitable Foundation, so she has some lovely connections in terms of people who like to give money to worthy causes. And at the moment, we're only a 3-member board because we really didn't know what the job description would be, so we didn't want to ask 8 people to take on the role. But if we need to add more, we will. But at the moment, the 3 of us have been able to handle the management of the nonprofit, and we became official as far as the Commonwealth of Massachusetts was concerned on August 1st of last year. The IRS is taking a little bit longer. We were told it would be 180 days, but that's a very long 180 days because that expired February 11th. But we just received a phone call day before yesterday that our letter from the IRS that we are a certified 501c3 is actually in place. And that will be sort of the last step in our incorporation process to be.
Just in time for tax season, see?
Yes, right, exactly. Everything that the generous people who have made donations to us, their gifts will be tax deductible retroactively, but it will be nice to have that 501c3 after our name in terms of the IRS credibility.
Sure.
Are you paralleling with Habitat on the construction process? Or
Yes, we are.
So they're gonna be kind of coinciding with occupancy?
Yeah.
They're gonna parallel with your schedule?
Exactly, yeah. They start their work this coming Tuesday. They will be starting the demolition in the barn to take out the real estate offices that were there, Jim. And a letter I saw, an email today, they hope to have their building permit by May 1st, so they will be working through April to get everything ready to go. And there really will be 2 job sites right next to each other. Our contractor and their project manager are working hand in hand, and so far it's really, and the nice thing is because of the amount of parking that is in that, I mean, I hate asphalt, but I must say it's being handy for the construction process. We'll be taking some of it out. There's ample room, you know, on a day like next Tuesday, when the Tuesday work crew from Habitat comes. They came to our side on December 5th. There were 18 volunteers there. And that was 15 cars. But between 8 in the morning and 11:30, they took out 40 real estate cubicles and 1.5 tons of carpet as a gift to the farmhouse. And they'll be doing that now in the barn in this coming week. So we have a lot of place that they can park on one side of the property, and our crew can park on another and have their own dumpsters, and the 2 acres is easily accommodating both work crews and is working very well.
So, Ellen, just thinking back here, there are no plans for the Habitat side here, because I know that's not your side. Well, I guess last staff, when we approved this, did we approve the entirety, or did we approve 2 separate things?
Well, it's the project in the entirety, but you restricted the number of bedrooms based on the septic capacity.
So what I'm getting at is, Ellen had to bring us her plans of the inside before she could get her permit. Does have to be the same thing true for Habitat? Because when that comes across your desk, you're gonna look at the order of conditions and say, oh, wait a minute.
I think we've done that, Scott, in parallel. I'm sorry you don't have those, because I know that Henry Fontaine does have the plans from Habitat for their 2 And, you know, the permit from you and the variance was that we could have up to 7 units, and that's what we're having. And the bedrooms were 9 that we were permitted because of the septic system that we have. The fact that they are adding more septic system, that's between them and the Board of Health. We still don't have more than 7 units, 5 on our side and 2 there. So those plans are available. You know, we can certainly have them to you. I would be very, very grateful if the board could give its approval tonight to the what you asked us to bring back to you, just so we could get our final building apart.
Yeah, I had no intentions of
Okay.
holding you up.
Thank you.
I guess maybe what we can do is, as a board, have staff review the plans.
Well, what I might respectfully suggest is, if we have those plans, you know, I think at the end of the day, there's less variation possible with the Habitat side. I mean, it was always going to be, it's less space, it's the same, I think it's pretty consistent with what was there the first time around. So what we could do is if the board is comfortable, we could have the chair review it, and we could just follow through administratively with that.
Yeah,
If you see something that is out of whack, then you can bring it to a meeting of the board, but, I mean, I don't anticipate that for 2 units, but.
Yeah.
And I think, Scott, that on the plans that you do have, where it shows reserved for habitat in the barn, if you look really, really closely on the gray lines, the floor plan for the first floor is in fact there. It's superimposed on what Jim Zegowitz permitted. It's, what is these are the dates that the ones that stated January 9th, is that correct? Where it says reserved for?
Yeah, the problem is it's very
It comes
white.
up here, but on the plans that I have at home, it actually has.
Oh, yeah, no, on the first floor we got it.
Way back where it says 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. The second floor was not ready at that point in time, but that just gives you a very good indication of, I think the second floor is gonna pretty much mirror, the first floor. So it gives you an idea of what it will be. But I know that the complete set for first and second floor of the barn are, in, Henry Fontaine's office. Those were sent over to him this week.
Okay. So does the board have any other questions?
I do not. I just had to ask Ellen for a clarification. So it looks like Unit 1 is ground level,
That's correct.
Unit 2 is second floor.
Second floor of that same
Unit 3
building.
does have both.
It's the only 2-bedroom in the project.
Okay.
So there are 4 1-bedrooms, and the 2-bedroom is the 2-story,
Okay.
which is how it was built. Did you know that? It was built as a 2-family.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
So George Drew and his family were in units 1 and 2, and then another family who I believe worked for them lived in the other half. So it was built as a 2-family in 1860.
It was a two-family for a long time.
Yeah, and it continued. Ben
Yeah.
kept it as a 2-family, and until Caldwell Banker bought it in '94,
Yeah.
it was still a 2-family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good history.
Jeff?
So I think we'd be looking for a motion from the board to make a finding that the plans provided to you tonight are generally consistent with the original approval, and find that they've satisfied that condition of approval. And then we'd separately ask the board to designate the chair to review the habitat plans and to authorize administrative review of that.
Give it a so moved. So moved. Second? Second.
Thank you.
Would you like a roll call vote, or,
No, just regular vote is fine.
all in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with this project.
Oh, it's so exciting. We're
Moving
thrilled.
right along.
Thank you
Good
for
luck.
all your support.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is 71 Powers Road. Right, for the record,
For the record, Bill Hannigan with Hannigan Engineering. Max Deasy, who is the developer, is with me as well. We've submitted a request for minor modification from the plan approval that was granted by this board relative to the project at 71 and 0 Powers Road. As part of the conditions, both with this board and the planning board, one of the things that was supposed to happen was that the railroad strip of land was supposed to be annexed to the parcel of land at 71 Powers Road. In doing the property line survey work for that, we discovered, through the couple of different surveyors that were involved, discovered that that railroad piece of land is actually not in the title of the landowner for this project. It's actually in the underlying title of the abutting parcels to the north. So the site plan had to be modified to reposition the buildings on the lot, and there's another plan here that's up there now that shows the location of the approved buildings and the location of the proposed buildings by this modification. So the buildings, as you go from the upper left, that building really, at this point, is really on the property line of what the real ownership is. So to meet the setback for that building, we slid that south. And you can see the dash line there is the setback line, so that building now meets the setback line right there. And then from there, we just kind of rotated the buildings around to provide sufficient space between the buildings to make them buildable and viable. And then towards the front, we took that building that is the red box, actually was facing the driveway. We kind of inverted that and rotated it back to come back into the cul-de-sac, so it had a better layout, in our opinion, relative to making the neighborhood itself not part of the roadway system, if you will. And then we shifted the second unit, that when it's further in the 100-foot setback, we actually shifted that back and put it out of the 100-foot setback as much as possible. Matter of fact, it looks like it's just the deck that's going to end up being in there. So in our letter submittal, what we did was we basically gave that as an outline, and then we went through the various findings and conditions that the board had placed on the original project, and we gave you a narrative of how this either impacts or doesn't impact those conditions. So I think that that's really what we're looking at for the board to look at in the package. So if you can pull the letter out, the first page is really a summary of what I've just gone through right here. And on the second page, basically, I'm reiterating what was in your approval as part of your findings, to basically review each of them independently, and talked about, so the information that's in the italics, that's what the bylaw says. The information that's in the regular text is what you wrote in your decision. The information that's in the bold text is what I'm basically giving the board information relative to this, but each particular item, so that we can follow through along the way in one document. So the first item was relative to non-conforming uses, and this was granted, and this minor modification really doesn't have any change relative to the uses. It's really about the configuration of the site itself. Okay. The second item was relative to non-conforming structures, and it talks about, in your findings, it talks about that the setback is 50.5 feet, for example, rather than 14.9 feet, is one of the items that was found by the board. The applicant testified that the structures represent 5849 square feet within the setback, while the proposed structures represent 2975 square feet within the setback. I think that's an important part for my section that's in bold. Minor modifications were made to the site development plans to include further reductions to the amount of building structures within the front setback from 2975 as approved to approximately 1,645, including decks. I didn't know whether the previous application included was just the buildings, or was the building and the decks and porches and everything. So the number I'm providing includes everything relative to the building, as well as decks and porches. So it's the full amount of structure. And as you can see, the plan that we're proposing actually provides further reduction of that of that setback information. And then the other part of that bold section is that since the land of the abandoned railway bed is not within the chain of title of the owner does not have the ability to provide a public walking trail nor the open space in the form of the former railroad bed area. So on the assessor's map, and I'm not sure if you have that available, but on the assessor's map, this parcel is shown as 71 has the old house lot. And next to it, it's still, even today, is shown as that strip of land between parcel 05-1 and 05-12. That strip of land is shown on the assessor's map as being a separate and distinct piece of land. That actually is not the case. The property line that is on the northeast side of our land against what was the former railroad, that's the limit of the land that we have to work with, which is why we're requesting this modification. In running the title, we also, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but Bergeron Machine, the product next to this product, we did that product back a few years ago with their addition, and the railroad bed property actually runs in their title, so they actually own that railroad bed section that's shown on the assessor's map. So the assessor's map needs to kind of be updated. The piece behind it, 05-14, also owns the railroad bed next to it as well. So Max here he actually approached those owners about, would they be interested in, providing an easement, and they really don't have any room to do so. One, on the Bergeron Machine, and the other one with the type of use it's on the 05-14, it's really heavy industry, and so I think that they could be concerned about liability if someone were walking along that area. So as part of this whole thing, when we're going to the planning board to ask them for changes, we kind of try to cross the T's and dot the I's about what would the board be asking. And we went through that process basically, and we came back to the conclusion that the plan that we're providing is really the solution to being able to make this project come into fruition. So with that, we need this board's consent basically to relocate and adjust the buildings positionally, and I think that might be more of a planning board thing, because what we're doing is we're making them conform to the zoning or conform moving in more conformance than they were previously, even under the previously approved plan with respect to the building square footage within that front 100-foot setback. So those are really the two main elements on this. Then we go through the additional criteria. In summary, there's really nothing that we're doing with the revised plan that affects any of the special permit approval criteria with respect to the various zoning bylaw sections. Traffic flow, for example, number 2 on the third page. Minor modification made to the site plans do not affect the criterion as noted where the public trail is not able to be provided. Additional parking area is not warranted. So for example, that condition was requesting an additional parking area somewhere near the trail. Well, we would like that to be removed from the conditions as well because of the fact that there's no trail there to provide additional, so there's no need for additional parking at this point in time. And if you go down through those, you have 3 and 4, the site changes made to the site plan did not affect the criterion of the specific zoning approval criterion. And same for potential fiscal impact. When we get down to the specific conditions and the conditions of approval, the first one, language and deeds acknowledging light, noise, and outdoor recreation, etc. Basically, that is a condition that information has to be placed in the deeds. That'll still run with this project because that's still a condition that's being held. Applicant shall provide a plan revising and adjusting proposed building location to be entirely on the parcel identified as 71 Powers Road. My understanding is that was done by the prior engineer at some point in time, but since that time, we've actually pulled them not only all the way onto 71, but now we're meeting the setback criteria between 71 and the abutting property of Bergeron machine, okay? And then the railroad bed is another part of it as well. So I know there's a lot going on, but with the letters, but there's really not much happening with the site itself, aside from shifting the buildings back over to have them have them be on the property and meet the setbacks, especially on the north-hand side of the property. So, I mean, I could continue to go through them all, but I believe everything is kind of covered. If the board has had a chance to review this, hopefully they have. Be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding this.
Jeffrey?
Just before you continue, I apologize if I didn't catch it earlier. Did you designate someone for this item? Did you designate for the whole night, or were you only designating item per item as you went along?
The whole night.
The whole night? Okay, just wanted to be clear before. Thank you.
We had one man in the penalty box, we're down.
Yep.
May I ask what that is regarding, just so I can understand?
So in other words, we don't have the full 5 members here, so we had to designate an alternate to fill in for the extra member.
Okay.
That's all that was.
Okay, thank you.
But we have to record it.
Right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All 5 of us are here. We do have full 5.
Oh, we do have all 5.
Full 5, Jeff.
Dan's not
Yeah.
an alternate.
It's
All
the
right.
alternate's not here.
Right, but didn't you designate him?
He did.
He did.
I did, but yes.
He
I
made an
realized the
error
fact that he
which
was
we
here.
overlooked.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I just compounded that.
So he's
The
a
minutes
super
taker, be gracious,
So
please,
we're all
thank you.
set. We're all set. So, one of the concerns we had with the original project was the distance between the structures. Do you know what the distance between these structures is?
I don't know.
I see a lot of numbers, but I don't see that one.
Yeah, I don't see an exact dimension. Because that was actually one of the things that I noted within the decision, was at one point it said, I think there was a number out there of 37 feet. But even the plans that were approved didn't have 37 feet between buildings.
This was a long time ago that we
Right.
approved this, so we would have to go back and see.
So just rough scale, the garages are how wide?
22.
Yeah, 22 feet, so the driveway in front of the garage is probably about 20 feet wide. So you probably have greater than 20 feet between building 1 and building 2, and greater than 20 feet between building 2 and building 3. You probably have less than 20 feet between building 3 and 4, and about 20 feet between building 4 and 5 in general.
And the garages are 20.
Right, so maybe maybe it makes it 20 feet then. We can,
I think that's kind of an important piece, and I would like to see some consistency in the distances between these structures.
part of the reason why it is inconsistent is the utilities and the drainage infrastructure, the water lines that have to be put in, the force main for the septic system. We've actually relocated the septic tanks to a different location to try to fit these in a little bit better. What we've tried to do is, as you're looking at the building, so for example, the building that's set back, the reason why there's more space between those 2 buildings is because we want the view from the driveway so that the person in that house is looking straight out to the driveway, that they don't have another house in front of them, okay? And we've tried to do that with the various orientations of the buildings themselves. So example, even the one on the upper left-hand corner, that when you're sitting on the front porch looking out, you're not looking at another building. So if you look at the orientation, that's kind of how we've set them up. And then from there, we have certain offsets that we have to have between water and sewer lines, certain offsets between the different other utilities that go through there. We've had a sneak drainage in back to try to match the drainage system that was designed before. So there's a lot of things going on. But I think the intention is that each building, looking out the back, looking out the front. So if you look at the garage side of the building, there are no windows on the garage side of the building except for in the area of the deck, okay? So the other side of the building, the 2 buildings that are in the middle, so you're building, I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So building 3 and 4, there's a large space between the window sides where the chimneys are and those areas when you talk about the actual buildings themselves, okay, that's where we're trying to place the space, in those areas. So even though they, and I don't know what the numbers were on the original, I guess I can look it up, but, I don't know if the the numbers were on the original plan. One, we can add them. That's not difficult to do. But we're trying to get to the next planning board meeting as well, so we're hoping to kind of wrap this up tonight. And I know that's a hope, it's a request. But I think by looking at the logic of how we laid the buildings out, we're trying to accomplish the intent of what the board was looking at relative to the separation between the buildings, if that makes sense.
Mr. Chair, if I can add in on this house plan is actually, it's a little more narrow than the original plans that were approved. And we've built it before, and it's designed to be built with minimum distance in between. So the two windows that Bill's referring to next to the fireplaces, they are actually, they're.
You have side views of this? You have pictures, right?
Yeah, I do, which I can hand one out to you.
Well, here, these are the buildings, right?
What's that? Yeah, this is the building. I can hand one out to everyone. It's kind of hard to see, and actually you'll barely see it. But if you look next to the fireplace, it's just a little window that's up higher for privacy. And then the other window that you'll see that is a full-size window, that is in the hallway just to get natural light upstairs. And I've got this plan as well if you guys would like to take a look at it. But we built this plan quite a few times, 15 times over at right across the border over in Acton, next to Nara Park. And the plan, it's not a big house, but it lives really well, and the buyers absolutely love it. They recommend their friends. We've had family members buy them. It's kind of designed for this, and I think that it's a really good fit for this project. And it does provide privacy in between the units, and it's more to the rear, which for the first house won't be a big help. We are planning on doing screening, but most of the windows are to the back.
So how many square feet are these units,
They're 1932 on the first two floors,
including the garage?
not including the garage, no.
What's the total square footage, including the garage?
Including the garage, I'll pull that up. I can add that up. Would y'all like to see one?
Sure, we can share this.
All right.
So this says 2,500 square feet.
Yes, it's including the finished basement. So I think there's 572 in the, or 578 in the basement.
How big is the garage?
It's 24 by,
So you got about 450 square feet in the garage.
sounds right.
So you're looking at 2,900 square feet.
So we're 20, it actually goes back a little deeper there, and then it's finished above it. It's 24 by 23 at the deepest, and I think it's 20 on the shallow bay.
So if you add 400 square feet, you're still at 2,900 square feet for this house with the garage.
And the previous one was 2,900 square feet, first two floors, I believe, excluding garage on the size of the house.
So the footprint of the previous building was 44 by 40, which is 1760. What's the footprint of this one?
This one is,
Be the first floor plus the garage, right?
yep, so we are 38 wide, 46, but we jog. That's going from the front of the garage to the back.
So that's 1748. So we're going from 1760 on the approved down to 1748 footprint-wise, okay?
But that's actually not, because it jogs in here,
So it's even less than that.
Yeah, quite a bit. You
So what's
take
the first floor
12
area?
So if you, 12 by 16,
Do you have
And
the area, you have the area?
First floor square footage is 934.
934, plus the garage is 24 by,
23 here, and then it's 20 up front.
You're about
there you go.
1,400 square feet on the first floor.
yeah, so this is,
Garage.
Yep.
yeah, that sounds about right. it's 23 by 24 with a knockout.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's less than 1,500 square foot on the first floor, including the garage, yeah. So they're not a lot smaller, but they're a little smaller. But I think that part of the orientation of the buildings, along with the location of the windows, like what Max said, that they're, and I didn't know that till right now, that most of the windows are in the back. So if that's the case, there's even more room between. But like I said, we're trying to, as we're laying out these buildings, we don't want to go too far back for building number 4, for example. We don't want to go too far back into the buffer zone. We tried to hold the limits of the buffer zone. If we look at the overlay plan, okay, if you look at where, so you can see we tried not to go too far back from the original layout. So we tried to make it so that the approval granted on the project from this board was also, what we were coming up with would also be palatable to the planning board and the conservation, because we have to go back to them as well. So we're trying to like mesh everything together. And you know, you can see there is less room between each building than there was in the original plan, but then again, we had more room to work with on the lot than we have now.
So I think that's part of my concern, is we worked really hard on that first plan to make sure that we had plenty of room between the buildings, because we didn't want everything jammed in. That's not the intent of this particular area and neighborhood. So, you know, I'm kind of stuck on that, but how about other questions and comments from the board? So the real question we're here to answer tonight is all this stuff what you would consider a minor modification?
Yeah, that's the elephant in the room.
Yep. And that strip of land in the railroad bed was how wide?
I think it was 35 feet. It's width, actually, you know what, I have it on the survey plan.
Aren't they generally 66 feet?
This is a weird piece. It's like half the strip was conveyed out to something else along the way.
Oh.
Okay, so this, you guys have this, right? This property line survey plan? So, down towards this area, it looks like the total width was around 62 and a half. I'm sorry, 82 and a half. Okay, and what was shown on the original plans was about 40 feet was the description. Okay, so if, yeah, that's it right there. So if you look at the dash line, the first dash line,
Where is it? Okay.
okay? They don't even show it. I'm sorry.
It's not on that plan. So it was 80 feet by how long?
Oh, I don't know the full length of it.
How long is your lot?
Well, no, the railroad bed goes
Beyond your lot, but how
Yeah,
much,
yeah.
how long is your lot? How deep is your lot from the,
about
from lot?
1,140 square feet, 1,140, well, 1,143 feet
By 80.
by roughly 80. But I don't think the full 80 was part of, I think that, if I'm not mistaken, reading through stuff, I believe that the strip of land was represented as being about 40 feet on,
So it was close to 2 acres.
correct, that we don't have. And quite frankly, that they never had.
I know who to blame.
Not me.
Oh, no.
You got the surprise.
Yeah. And what's the total acreage of this site now?
Naked.
It's like 13 and a half acres, I think. That might be the difference. You have our regular site plan? Yeah, 13.6 acres.
13.62.
So you lost a tenth of it.
Was there a planning or zoning board decision ever recorded for this?
Yes. Both.
Okay.
The zoning decision was recorded, and actually we're here asking for an extension of that as well. And the planning board decision was recorded for site plan review. There were two of them, I think. There was two site plans or SPs.
Site plan review and
Yeah.
stormwater management.
Yeah, stormwater management, that's it.
Well,
And plus an order of conditions of conservation.
So, board members, do you think this is a minor modification or it's not?
well, it's a modification,
Mm-hmm.
but based on the location and what we have coming up for housing in that area, Shoba is
Mhm.
talking about 600 units in their backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Housing on top of housing on top of housing on top of housing is gonna be tight. This, I mean, we're talking about apples and oranges here, but, you know, we're talking about, you know, MBTA region, a zone that has up to 5,000 units,
The possibility.
possibility, but significant number of units are in their backyard at the ski area. Backing up to the Tiki Bar, which I hope it continues to exist. You know, I would think in light of what else might be going on in the next 5 to plus years in that area, this is like not a big deal compared to what might be happening in that whole neighborhood. And traffic and that sort of thing. This is a small piece of what traffic might be there. This is a small piece of what congestion might be there. Again, it's hypothetical, but that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about developing there over the next 5 years or less.
Mhm.
So,
Sure.
based on what these guys are confronted with and that, again, surprise they came up with, whether it's a minor modification or not, I think it's a realistic possibility that they put this up there and they're gonna have 500 neighbors in their backyard, 5 years.
I mean, yes,
So what the hell's the difference with this versus that?
that's something that's talked about. But for this year, it might just be good, I pulled up on the screen here, you know, the decision. So it might be good just to think about it from the perspective of, does this change construction of 5 detached dwelling units? Does it change, you know, an extension of allowing multiple principal structures on one lot, construction of a larger footprint, elimination of landscape requirements of 100 feet? Does this change much of what you granted before?
So right at the last line, it says there's 25 feet between the buildings.
Yeah, so that doesn't seem like a minor.
Well, we're probably at 20 feet between buildings in general.
20 versus 25?
Right.
Could that be addressed with screening?
Sure it could. Good fences make good neighbors.
Well, the 25 feet between I wouldn't put fences between the buildings.
No, I'm just being facetious.
No. But I think that part of the approval is that we do have to do screening along the road, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Right.
That was part of the condition.
And if you look, there's a planting area that, against the wetland area. That planting area that is approved on the original plans has been maintained. I didn't put all the planting information on that, but that's been maintained on that side. And we have to so I'm hearing that there's gonna be a bunch of units built at the ski area.
But there's a proposal.
Yeah.
So are they gonna give us the same, warning that we have to give, or consideration that we have to give, our people have to say that they know about the ski area?
No, because it's under the Micmac laws,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
don't have to do much.
Right. So, what we're trying to adhere to the plan as much as possible, and where we've altered the plan because of spatial considerations, okay, we've tried to make adjustments that make sense. You know, for example, that first unit, the red having a driveway out to the driveway, that didn't make any sense to me when I looked at it. So rotating that building and putting it in a better position, make it more part of the neighborhood, that makes more sense to me. Sliding them all, you know, as soon as you slide that first unit on the upper left down, everything else has to shift a little bit. So if this board puts a condition that we have to have at least 20 feet between buildings, we can make that modification as part of what we then transmit back to the planning board. So I think that would be something that we would be comfortable doing.
Can you get 25 feet?
If we can get 25, we'll try, but I'm trying to, my concern about trying to get 25 is that I don't know if I have the room with the utilities, because I have to be 10 feet between water and sewer, and I'm feeding water and sewer to 5 buildings, okay? And I have a sewer line going through the middle of 2 buildings alongside a drain line, okay, out to the septic field. So, it looks, do you have a scale? Do you have a full set of plans here, full size? If I had access to my computer, I could jump in there. You might be able to pick the distances on the PDF document, because that's not a scan, that's an actual distance, not that one, the one you had up. Do you have a measuring tool on that? Do you have the full-size plans here with you? I didn't bring them with me either.
I mean, am I the only one that wants 25 feet?
Well, I mean, 25 would be ideal, 20 would be acceptable.
I'd say minimum 20.
20
What
seems
are the
close.
options to get to 25? Cut a
Lost
unit,
2 acres
cut-
of land.
diminish the size of each house? Each unit?
Well, it's not the size of the units, it's all the other obstacles like utilities,
Yeah, right,
drainage,
right,
water, and all
right.
these other things.
Right, right.
So, I mean, I can see, I'm comfortable that we have more than 25 between 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm comfortable we have more than 25 between 2 and 3. Between 3 and 4 looks like the tightest spot. Between 4 and 5 looks like it might be tight as well, between the building and the deck versus building and building. If you go building and building on between 4 and 5, I think you probably have it as well.
So what are you calling 4 and 5, or 1 and, where are you
1,
starting
2,
from?
3, 4, 5. Count.
Upper left,
This is one.
So one is upper left?
Right.
1 is upper right.
upper right,
upper
up
right.
there,
Upper right,
okay.
okay, so
There's
that's one,
1,
that's
there's
2.
2, there's a lot of space there.
1 and 2 are spaced.
2 and 3 looks like they're the closest,
Yeah,
red to red.
no, 3
3
and 4.
Well, red is.
Red is the
That's
old.
what the old one.
Red is the
Oh,
old.
okay, all right,
3 and 4 move closer to each other.
yep,
Yeah.
3 and 4.
That's the tightest one out of all.
Right.
3 and 4 move in.
Right, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep the structures outside that buffer zone as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of why that's positioned, and then if you look at the alignment of the building number 5 in the upper left, if you take the line of that building and bring it straight out to the street, we're trying to keep the line of sight, if you're sitting on the front porch, that you're not looking at building number 4. You know, you'll see it, but it's not like right in front of you. So that's the line of sight I'm trying to project on all the fronts and the backs of these buildings, especially building number 2, which is set back. That's kind of how that kind of became spatially adjusted. We've tried to flip the garages appropriately to keep space between the buildings a little bit more on the residential side. So even between buildings 3 and 4, you don't have garage against garage, but you have, you know, grass area in the front of those 2 units that both will end up seeing. So it's pretty close. I just don't know, with all the utilities that we have running through this, I just don't know if I can get 25 between all buildings, especially between buildings 3, 4, and 5, really. Without then getting further into the buffer zone of conservation, without then getting into the line of sight issues that I'm trying to avoid, without then having utilities not comply. So there's other factors that I'm trying to fit into the whole equation, if you will.
We're the only factor that matters. So I would be okay with 20 feet, and if you can't get 20 feet, guess what? You're coming back to see us.
Sounds good.
Anybody else? That sound all right?
I think so.
So Jeff has got a puzzled look on his face.
Right, so first of all, the 20 feet may be more important than you think. I thought there was some provision in our bylaw about 20 foot between structures like that, so
Yeah,
you could still have the authority to do that.
right.
It's just, but I think the 20 is not a bad thing for nipping that in the bud. And it sounds to me like they've made a good case for kind of really most of the same stuff, just reorganizing it on the land that they actually control. That makes sense to me, making the utilities work. What I haven't heard from the board yet is, how do you feel about the fact that they're stating that they don't own the land that the prior applicant thought they owned, and the impacts to that? And then we do have to, I think, write something, if the board does make a decision, I think we have to do something definitive in any decision, because right now, there are decisions, in theory, referring to 2 tracts of land, so we need to have clear separation that, frees up one and, kind of makes clear what it is going forward, and that supersedes the prior, decision. So we'd want to probably work a little bit with town council on that to make it clear for everyone doing due diligence.
Yep.
And then do you think it's a minor, or does it need a?
David?
I don't want to distract you, but one more thing. So the trail got lost in the shuffle. But could you give an easement along the top of that?
What they do control, you mean?
Yes.
Well, that's a question for.
We did look into that, but that only gets you back so far, and it doesn't get you, our land doesn't go back far enough to get to the rest of the railroad land that's open.
Well, to go,
It goes into the swamp eventually.
what if you went, how far back could you go? I mean, could you go back there and then just maybe somehow figure out how to get over to the ski area?
So I walked it when we ran into this problem, and it is completely wet back there. There are already the box culverts, beautiful granite culverts, and they are off the property now, and that's how you would get back further. Other than that, it's completely wet getting up to that, and there is a dry parcel, but it goes underneath the old granite box culvert. So you'd be in the swamp before you'd be able to get back over to upland to access the back. And I kind of walked all through there trying to figure out a way just for that reason. And then I did approach both the neighbors and said, hey, this is something, it's going to help the community and everything. And the back neighbor, I totally understood why he said, look, if it wasn't a huge liability for me, I'm all for helping everybody. And that was John Burgoyne with Ideal Block. But he says, as it is, I've got kids that are running out onto our yard, and we've got excavators and front end loaders. He said it would be a liability risk for me. I spoke to Mark Kelly. He sold Bergeron Machine, but he still owns that parcel. And he said, I'm all for something happening next door because that's a hazard, but I can't give up anything. And so he wasn't inclined to either. So we kind of got shut down there.
Jeff?
So it sounds then you don't feel as though there's any practical likelihood that there could be a feasible trail going through on your.
We will do it, but I feel like it will be the trail to nowhere, and you'd almost be inviting people to go onto their property, and then they're going to look at us and say, hey, I had this conversation with you. I said I didn't want this, and now you're kind of funneling people to my property. So if the board insists, we could do that, but I think it might create a problem.
I appreciate that. I just think, it, right or wrong, it seems like it's a good, you're at least making some effort with what you do control, and nothing may ever come from it. But
As
given,
an avid hiker, I would absolutely love it. The idea of rail trails, I love them. And we can put something on there. And maybe if both of those properties change hands in the future, we could write it in a way that would agree to a parcel going back there. But at that point, they might have allowed all the way up where the trail should be. But we're open to, having language in there that says, future use area or future public easement.
Yeah, I don't think there's any harm in us giving the town an easement for an access trail 15 feet wide.
yeah, I think that's a reasonable trade-off, given that, you're dealt the cards that you had, and you found out with your due diligence that it doesn't appear that you own what prior owners thought they had. And it's a way to kind of cure, obviously the board put some thought into that trail. And while you can't do that trail, maybe you can allow for the possibility of a future trail.
Right, so
I think
so
future
if we
trail
put- yeah,
access.
If we put an easement on the property that runs with the land, that grants the town the right to put a trail in if they want to, and then the town can then work with the pieces as they go up further and try to acquire that, I don't think there's any problem with us on that at all.
I think that's a reasonable approach, if the board's amenable.
Yep.
So how long would such a trail be? Is it?
Our property line is around 1,100
1100 feet.
But I think the idea is, we'll grant you the easement, and then if you're able to perfect something to get a trail beyond that, at least you'll have this piece taken care of. I think that's where you're heading, Jeff, right?
Kind of like MBTA housing, we're providing the opportunities.
1,100-foot trail sounds like if you flipped it over to the other side, could it be a 1,100-foot trail to the tiki?
Yeah. You gotta bring your flippers with you, David.
In that case, I'll buy a unit.
It's a canoe launch, is what it really is.
All right, so, Joe, are you writing all this down?
Yes, I've been taking notes, yes,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
So one of the conditions was 20 feet between the units, based on what we think might be zoning bylaws for the town anyway. Granting a easement for that trail access. Was there anything else?
So, we should talk about the width of it, so we're all on the same thing?
Yep,
Is
yep.
15 feet?
So that is that is one question. So I think 15 feet wide for the trail proper makes sense, but what if there's say there's a temporary grading or something, or what happens if,
20 feet.
yeah.
I think because we do have that one pushed up against there, we'd like to keep it 15 if we can, and I think that is more than enough room for grading and to create a trail.
I think, actually, if you look at the grading now, I think you're gonna be flattening out that whole area anyways.
Yeah, but so that because we lost that area, I think
That's actually the turnaround spot for that.
turnaround
vehicle.
spot for there. I'd like to
Cul-de-sac.
keep it off there, and then in the future, if and when that does come together, we would like to have more room for
I have to
screening. and
rethink this, because of the fact that we have some of our utilities there now, the septic tank and pump chamber.
How many feet off of the property line is the pump
11.
chamber? 11. Can we do 11 and just go right down the edge?
Well, let's see if we can move, let's do 15 and let's see if we can move the pump chamber. Let's see if we can move that utility a little bit. I think we were trying to keep it out of the driveway, but it might be that we pull the tank back a little bit this way and then slide the pump chamber down.
And again, we don't know, something unusual might come up, we don't know exactly where it might connect to, so I think a good faith effort for 15 feet with reasonable considerations for site-specific and or other, I think, at the end of the day, town may just want benefit of a trail,
Right.
that proper wouldn't exceed the 15 feet, but,
Right.
Who knows?
Well,
if there's
if the
little-
town, also, if the town got a grant to build the trail, they could take temporary easements, through the eminent domain process for the construction.
So we just, we'd want a little reasonable flexibility for construction purposes, not to be greedy and make it wider, just, we don't want to have an easement that doesn't allow us to practically, get it done someday, maybe.
Yeah. I'd like it to end up that all of our utilities are outside of your easement. And I think I can slide the tanks down to make that work. So if we can live with 15, I think that would be good.
How close is the cul-de-sac there?
Cul-de-sac's closer than 15.
So part of the cul-de-sac will be in the easement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, that's.
It is what it is. I think we can't, we've tried to keep that part of
No.
of the construction exact.
I'm just thinking that, whatever trail goes in there, it'll be up against it, but if the cul-de-sac is in the easement, obviously the HOA is gonna be maintaining that. That wouldn't be something that, I think, it's gonna be fairly flat there. I think you
Yeah.
could build the trail.
Yeah.
Without tearing up the cul-de-sac.
Right. And maybe when you go and you do the site grading, maybe you kind of prep it.
Yeah, no, we will certainly keep that area, for the future use in mind, and, yeah, we can do that.
Okay,
All right,
I think so.
so, once again, this is gonna be a minor modification. Everybody shaking their head, yeah, okay,
Yes.
that's a good thing.
Yes.
So Jeffrey, what do you need? Joe, what do we need?
We do need the board to make a finding that it would be a minor modification. Direct staff to prepare modification decision based on the discussions tonight. We do need, we would like some assistance with town council, though.
We want to make sure it supersedes any prior decision.
It frees up the other parcel that should not be burdened by,
Well, that parcel doesn't exist, technically.
well, there's a decision that is out there
yeah.
making reference
Reference
to
to
it.
a mapping parcel,
To me,
yeah,
that's,
So can we have that motion, please?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So, staff has their list of due diligent things, and I think you guys should be all set, with us anyway.
And we thank you because we know that this is not something that you had any control over, nor us, but we appreciate your flexibility with us on this.
I think in Jay and Jimmy and my 18 years on this board, we've seen this parcel about 88 times.
This is it.
I know.
We're gonna get it done.
Mamma mia, let's build something down there, please.
What's your target start date?
The day after we get our
Yes.
in hand.
That's right, that's right.
Joe, do we need this to also include an
Extension of
extension?
time.
Yes, please.
So,
Extension?
Would the board
and
also
again, we need an
find-
extension?
It would be appreciated.
We've asked for it.
Oh, you want the,
No,
oh, you get
But
the,
we need some.
No, hand them up prospective buyers.
EOD?
We,
my son.
Really? What branch?
Navy.
Navy.
Yeah, I was Navy. Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Were you EOT too?
No. I do what they refer to as a father. I was air traffic control, so I was always on base and never out doing that kind of stuff, so.
Keep it for our
Respect and
records.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Keep it.
Need that, do we?
Yeah, I was looking for an extension. Get for both.
me out of my corner.
Kept
swiveling.
What's the typical
Right out the
extension?
I mean, 1 year should be plenty.
Should be enough, and I guess all we have to do is start construction within that, we'll be starting, correct?
As long as you vest the approval, I think if you pull the building permit and commence.
I think the demo is probably the most important.
yeah.
So we've already applied for that, and we're looking to take that down as soon as possible. We've actually, Mr. Fontaine called the owner. There's been kids out there. It's a hazard for sure.
Oh, but
And
what's the hangup?
the hangup is we don't have a demo permit and we don't own it.
Yeah.
This is all subject to approval.
But is that?
There's another, well, no, there's another separate hangup. Remember, this all stems from pre-existing non-conforming structures under use. I don't wanna dredge that up again, but before they have, it'd be to the applicant's advantage to have a new decision in place before that gets demoed.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're looking to take it down day one. We will close after we get full approval, so as soon as we can get approved, we plan on taking it down.
So I get the day one, I get the arms waving. How about relating that to the calendar?
To the calendar, we're on with planning board on
April 1st.
April 1st. If we get approved there, as soon as they can generate the permit, we'll knock it over.
May
So-
1st.
Yes, so let me step in front of my client for a second, okay?
Please do.
To protect him. So Jeff, the letter that you're gonna generate relative to this meeting, or that you're gonna generate relative to this meeting, okay, that will go on file with the town clerk,
Yes.
okay? Do you want us to record that as well?
I think it's imperative that a decision gets recorded so that outside world knows
Yes.
what's of record.
Yes, okay, and we would end up doing the same thing with planning.
Yes.
Okay, so once we have those documents in hand and we can record them, he can then close, all right? So once he's able to close, he can then grab his permit to do demo. And by doing it that way, all the permits are in order prior to demo, so the extension.
You're not at risk.
You're not at risk, exactly.
That being said, I think the commissioner sees a safety issue out there now, and so even if the building isn't demolished, access. So I think there may be some access issues that can be remedied with securing fencing and stuff.
The barrier fell down and I had 15 no trespassing signs stolen off the buildings. Seriously, you can't make that up.
Must be the kids at Lowell.
So you guys aren't from here, but this is known as the curse of Chet Herget.
Believe me, it is.
All right, so with that, we'd have everything in order?
And just right now, this decision is set to expire around the end of June 29th. I don't know if that grants enough time to do all that, so it might be worth an extension of time, at least some period of time, 6 months, a year, something along those lines, just to
If we
make
could
sure
just,
there's
if we could
no
just make it a
hiccups.
one-year extension, that would be making sure that we can get everything done that we need to get done. And then I believe that, the knowledge of the owner that there's a safety issue out there kind of supersedes, a lot of the other things relative to the zoning laws.
Yes.
Okay.
So do we have to motion that?
We do need a vote if you want to grant the extension.
Okay, grant a motion to grant a one-year extension on Powers Road, 70 Powers Road.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
So you're
Thank
all-
you very much for your
you're all
help in this.
set.
Hey, thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks
Appreciate
for
your
working
time.
through it.
Thank you.
Good job.
Good luck.
Get a fence out there, fence that property off.
Stealing the no trespassing.
I know you need no stealing with no trespassing.
Yeah. Was that the last item? I lost my agenda here, my pile of papers.
Other than a motion to adjourn, perhaps?
We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.